Hello Summoners, my name is Dan and welcome back to another ProGuides video. Today I'm going to be going over all the best blind picks, flex picks, and hard carries for every role in patch 9.19. We started off this series back in patch 9.16 and due to popular demand, we've decided to continue it for patch 9.19 as well. Since we want to prepare you guys as much as possible for Champion Select, we've decided to combine all three concepts into one video. Also guys, here is today's question of the day. Which champion was your first main? Mine was Annie because she only costed 450 influence points at a time and was considered a strong champion in Twisted Treeline. Let us know your answers in the comments down below. Also guys, by the time you finish watching this video, you should be well equipped and know exactly which champions are the most optimal when it comes to a number of drafting scenarios. 1. Are you picking before your counterpart and need a solid laner? 2. Does your team want to confuse the opponent with a flex pick? 3. Or do you just want a champion who can hard carry every game? But before we get started, I want you guys to click on the link below and check out our website, ProGuides.com. ProGuides is the best proven way to improve at League of Legends, and we post guide videos like this one every single day. We've been doing a lot more advanced content recently, and I'm sure you won't regret signing up. Also guys, we have an effective coaching feature, which lets you play and get coached by a pro. Trust me guys, you do not want to miss out on this because your friends will be absolutely stunned at how much better you've become at League of Legends. Now, with that being said, let's jump right into the video. Let's start off with our blind pick recommendations for patch 9.19. These are 5 champions that you might want to consider when you're picking before your opponent and want a solid laner who can do decently well into every matchup. First up, we have our top lane blind pick recommendation, who is going to be Pantheon. Although he did receive a nerf at the start of this patch, those changes were more focused towards his stance as a mid laner. Pantheon top in patch 9.19 remains almost unaffected and actually has slightly better scaling than before during the mid to late game. When it comes to laning, Pantheon is an aggressive lane bully who can poke out opponents from a distance while also threatening lethal with your passive and W. Against specific counter matchups like Vayne and Kennen, Pantheon can easily farm from a safe position while also using his E to negate any damage or all-ins from his opponent and set up ganks with his W. Our analysts highly recommend that you try him out this patch because his play rate did drop by a tiny bit. It does seem like he's become a lot less appealing to some players due to the nerfs, but don't be fooled by this, he's just as strong as before. Next up is our jungle blind pick, who's going to be Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao is an aggressive early to mid game jungler who has great dueling, farming, and ganking. At the start of this patch, Xin did receive a decent buff, which increased the sustain and damage during his mid to late game. Although the number itself wasn't that big, it actually ended up being a huge buff for Xin due to his ability to snowball his early game strength into the mid game. During your first clear, you should always look to find ganks whenever possible. This means that level 2 ganking a lane is always welcomed, and you should abuse the pressure you create on the map to invade the enemy jungler. There are only a few junglers in the meta right now who can beat Xin Zhao 1v1, so don't be afraid to take a fight. On to the mid lane blind pick, we have Malzahar. Malzahar has actually been one of the strongest mid laners in the game for quite some time, but has never tipped the edge into the broken tier. The reason why Malzahar is a great blind pick is due to his safety and playstyle. During the early laning phase, you're likely just playing to survive and catch as much CS as possible. Your CSing won't be great early, but once you purchase a few items, you can pretty much clear the entire wave with your E. Once you pass that level 6 mark, you can easily set up ganks for your jungler while also completely shutting down enemy assassins by locking them in place. Not a lot of champions can actually match your wave clear once you get going, so make sure to try them out. Next up, we have the ADCs. Our blind pick choice for AD carries this patch is Ashe. Ashe received a gigantic buff at the start of this patch, which has skyrocketed her win rate into the S or even the S+ tier. Having that extra auto reset is really helpful when it comes to her laning phase, and almost every pro player is spamming her again in solo queue. Ashe is also the best blind pick AD carry in the game due to her safety, long range, utility, and scaling. During the laning phase, you can easily bully out your opponents with your W and perma-shove the lane. In addition to this, you can also map hack by using your E and keeping an eye on the enemy jungler. It's really hard to punish a good Ashe player because this champion is so well-rounded and is extremely safe yet aggressive at the same time. Lastly, for blind picks, let's talk about our support pick, Blitzcrank. Much like Ashe, Blitzcrank received a huge buff at the start of this patch, and he is by far the best support in the game right now. However, you should expect this to change pretty soon because his win rate is quite inflated at the moment. Since so many players are not adjusted to his extra range on his Q, they're likely just being caught off, and Blitz's win rate should drop a decent amount over the coming weeks. However, the reason why Blitzcrank is such a great blind pick is because of his playmaking potential. Even if you're against a counter matchup like Morgana, you don't need to force anything during the laning phase. In fact, you can even miss 9 out of 10 hooks during your game as long as that one hook you hit is before an objective or teamfight. Here is a quick recap of all the builds we've mentioned for our blind picks. Now let's move on to the second section of the video, which covers the best flex picks. These 5 champions are for when you're picking before your opponent and want to avoid being counterpicked by choosing a flexible champion. Starting with the top lane, our flex pick choice is Heimerdinger. Heimer received a buff at the start of this patch, and a lot of players have been picking him up again. In fact, he currently holds the highest win rate in the top lane, but this isn't an accurate representation of his stance in the meta because his play rate is still very low. However, Heimer is still a very strong top laner who can pretty much beat anyone 1v1. Setting up 3 turrets early is a melee champion's nightmare because there's almost nothing you can do to beat him. Even if you call your jungler for a gank, it's very likely that Heimerdinger will 1v2 double kill you guys because he's just that powerful. In addition to this, almost nobody will be expecting a Heimerdinger top pick because he's traditionally played as a mid laner. That means they'll likely doom their laning phase by picking someone like Aatrox, Darius, or Jax, and then end up doing absolutely nothing the whole game. Next up is our jungle flex pick, who is Echo. It goes without saying that Echo is an extremely powerful and overtuned champion right now who's broken in 3 different roles. Riot Games has been buffing him over and over and over again, and he's become way too strong in the meta. When it comes to jungle Echo, he can easily clear camps while also being good at dueling and small skirmishes. His ganking could be a little bit better, but he makes up for it with his damage and safety. Echo is a great jungle flex pick because, like we mentioned, he's playable in 3 different roles, and your opponent will have no idea which role you're going to be. Seriously guys, do not sleep on Echo because he's very powerful right now. For our mid lane flex pick, we have the same champion, Echo. Like we mentioned in the jungle section, Echo is just extremely powerful right now, and there are not a lot of mid laners who can match him. He's received so many buffs within the last few patches, which have made him a bit overtuned. When playing Echo mid, you should look to be aggressive during the laning phase whenever you can. Echo has a lot of safety due to his low mana cost W and his ultimate, so mistakes can always be forgiven. For our ADC flex pick, we have Swain. Although the western regions are not a big fan of Swain in the bot lane, the Koreans and Chinese are obsessed with this pick and are very convinced that he's broken. Swain's passive synergizes very well with 90% of supports in the game due to them having hard CC in their kit. In addition to this, Swain can be more devastating in teamfights than his ADC counterpart due to his Drain Mage playstyle. We're not going to go into too much detail for Swain as ADC because our flex pick recommendation for the support role is, yep, you guessed it, Swain. Swain's support is being spammed by a ton of professional support mains, and it's very likely that you'll see it during the World Championships. Like we mentioned before, Swain synergizes very well with champions who have hard CC, like Xayah, Ashe, Caitlyn, and Jhin. In addition to this, his base damage is pretty high, and his burst is just insane during the laning phase. On top of that, he can easily collect soul fragments against the enemy duo, which further increases his tankiness during his ultimate duration. Give this a try, guys, because it's honestly quite sleeper OP and can net you a ton of free low. Here's a quick recap of the builds we mentioned for our flex picks. And last but not least, let's move on to the hard carry section. These picks are for when you're sick and tired of your team inting and you want to take matters into your own hands. If you're feeling confident enough in yourself, then try out these 5 picks. Starting with the top lane, we have our hard carry pick, who's going to be Riven. Although there are other hard carries like Jax and Fiora in the meta, we've mentioned those guys in last week's video, and we want to give Riven the spotlight for patch 9.19. At the start of the patch, Riven received a huge buff to her E's cooldown, which has increased her safety during the laning phase significantly. A lot of her bad matchups aren't so bad anymore, and there are a lot less windows to abuse her during the early game. If she can survive the laning phase against matchups like Poppy, Renekton, Pantheon, and Fiora, then she becomes a lot stronger, and I mean a lot. After you purchase Black Cleaver and Death's Dance, you'll have enough survivability to engage fights while also having 40% CDR due to your other runes. If you can hit multiple people with your combo, then it'll instantly burst their HP bar by a huge amount and auto-win the team fight. Give Riven a try, guys. You'll be surprised at how fun and powerful she is. Next up in our hard carry section, we have Graves in the jungle. Graves received a small buff in patch 9.19, and it's actually helped him quite a bit. Having that extra AD really improves his early clear speed and gank potential, and he feels a lot better to play. Since Graves is somewhat of a tanky ADC, you can play extremely aggressively during teamfights. Not only is Graves really hard to kill, but he also pumps out an insane amount of damage with every auto. The best Graves players in the world will almost never back out of a fight and E in towards the enemy whenever they can. Once you purchase a few items, you'll have enough DPS and burst to solo carry teamfights. On to the mid lane, our hard carry pick is Veigar. Not only does he have an insane amount of scaling, but due to his recent buffs, he's also one of the safest mid laners in the game. His E, Event Horizon, had its cooldown reduced by 2 seconds during the mid to late game, which is actually quite significant. Event Horizon is one of the best peeling and zoning tools in the game, and if you combine that with Veigar's massive burst, you get the perfect hard carry in the mid lane. During the laning phase, you want to scale up your damage as much as possible by last hitting creeps with your Q from max range. Since Veigar's early game is quite weak, you want to play safe and try your best to stay even. Once you hit the mid game, that's where you start to shine and can one-shot squishies with a single combo. Lock them up with your E, then use your W into Q, and then ultimate to finish them off. Our solo carry ADC picks for patch 9.19 is going to be Vayne. Vayne's ultimate was buffed this patch, and she's actually really close to making the push to S+ tier. If lane bullies like Caitlyn, Draven, and Ashe were not meta, then Vayne would easily top the charts amongst ADCs this patch. Since Vayne is designed to be a tank melter while also having a ton of mobility for insane plays, it's only natural that she's on our list for hard carries this patch. In addition to this, she scales extremely well into the late game due to items like Bork and Rageblade combined with her W and ultimate. However, do keep in mind that Vayne is quite tough to master, so you'll have to practice her a ton in normal games before you're ready for ranked. Lastly, for a hard carry support pick, we have Thresh. Thresh actually holds one of the highest win rate and play rates in the support role in patch 9.19. This is mainly due to his playstyle being able to fit into any team comp. In addition to that, he can also set up plays around the map and single-handedly win his team the game. Thresh is a strong roaming support who specializes in both defense and offense. All of his abilities can be used to either peel or make aggressive plays, and this is likely part of why he's finding so much success. You're able to adapt to the state of the game. If you have a fed carry who's able to 1v9, save your flay to block any engages, your hook to lock down divers, your ultimate to peel, and your lantern to help your teammate reposition. Otherwise, just look for picks with your hook and let your team follow up. Here's a quick recap of all the builds we mentioned for our hard carries. And that's it for our blind picks and hard carries video. We'd love to hear your suggestions on how to make these videos better, so if you have something to add, then please comment down below. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more content in the future. Also, make sure to check out ProGuides.com for guides and videos that were made by your favorite pro players, such as Hai, Bunny Fufu, and Mike Young. We're going to start uploading a lot more content within the coming weeks, so make sure you hit that bell icon to be notified of every upload. That's it for now, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the Rift.